Today we're going to be talking about 8 tips to be an elite quarterback. Now, tip number 1, a lot of quarterbacks know that power, throw velocity comes from their hips, right? So one of the common mistakes that a lot of quarterbacks will make is that they will take this very long front stride, they call it an overstride, and their feet end up being super wide outside of their shoulders. That is not how we could properly rotate and generate power from my hips. So instead of thinking I got to step to my target, I want you guys to all think you should step towards your target. Think your front foot needs to step down. And if you could get this front foot down just slightly outside of your front shoulder, you'll be able to rotate through quicker with your hips, more with your hips to generate more throw power, more throw velocity, and more throw distance. Now, tip number 2 has to do with the lower half for quarterbacks, AKA your base. So anytime that you're in a base, you guys, you want to be in a position called stacked. What I mean by stacked is you want to have your head, your throwing side knee, and your throwing side foot literally stacked on top of each other like a sandwich, a burger, however you want to think of it, because that is something called keeping your weight back. When your head, knee, and foot are stacked on top of each other, your foot has to be underneath your armpit. And when your foot's underneath your armpit, that makes it a lot easier for you to transfer your weight, rotate with your hips, especially when we are taking a short stride like in tip number 1. So we want to make sure we're in a stacked base. We punch the ground, we are stepping down with the front foot, and when we stay stacked, we can take that weight, transfer it through, and get that proper hip rotation. Now, if you're a quarterback, fellas, and you would like a daily workout schedule to follow, check out that very first link in the description below for our elite quarterback training package. What you'll get access to is 8 weeks of daily on-field throwing exercises, throwing drills for quarterbacks. Like Monday, you're doing this workout, Tuesday, you're doing this, and it's all on-field drills with the exact sets and reps to follow, and we give you a video example of each specific drill. Plus, we include a QB-specific 8-week gym routine to follow. So quarterbacks got to lift differently than other positions in the gym. You don't want to be doing a ton of heavy weight, don't want to be doing bench press, you need to be doing quarterback-specific movements, and that's what that gym routine covers. Same format, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're doing this, give you exact sets and reps and examples of each exercise. So guys, if you want our elite quarterback training package, check out that very first link in the description below. Let's get back to these tips. Now, tip number 3 to be an elite quarterback, we talked about it in tip number 1. You quarterbacks have to be able to rotate from their hips to generate power, but that's not the only thing that you have to think about with your hips. It's not just about rotating with your hips, it's about the timing of the rotation of your hips in your entire throwing sequence. So let me explain. Remember, where does our base want to be? We want to have my head, my knee, and my foot stacked on top of each other. Then I want to take a short step with my front foot. But when I take that short step with my front foot, you guys, I don't want all of my weight to shift forward. I don't want to try to rotate my hips on that front step, because what that will eliminate is a concept called torque. Torque comes from upper body and lower body dissociation. When you take a step to the target, you want to maintain your stacked position just for a split second. So when you stay stacked, that allows you to rotate your shoulders back as your front foot steps down. So upper body is separate from the lower body, AKA dissociation. So now when that front foot's down, your shoulders go back, that's when you rotate with your hips. That's when you fire through. And when that back hip can come through and be here before your shoulder, before your elbow, before the ball, that creates a whipping effect, and that's how we get more power on the ball as a quarterback. Think of it like a baseball swing, you guys. You're stacked in the batter's box, take a step to the pitcher, hips fire the bat through. That's exactly how quarterbacks generate power. Now, tip number 4 for quarterbacks is to not think just rotate with your hips. You got to think transfer your weight from your back leg. The weight transfer from your back leg to your front leg is what will force your hips to actually rotate, and you don't have to think about it. One of the common mistakes quarterbacks will make is they'll get in their stacked base, they take a step to the target, they're keeping their weight back, their shoulders separate, but then what they do is they just think hips, and they leave all of their weight onto this back foot. Their chest almost faces up, and that's why they shoot high, and they maybe don't have as much velocity as we need to. So what we want to do is we want to get back to my stacked base. I want to step, I want to separate my upper body from my lower body, but I want to take that weight, I want to go from quad to quad. I want to take that weight that's on my back leg and shift it, transfer that weight, because that will automatically force those hips to come through. You'll have more power on the ball, you'll have more whip with your arm, and that will make you a more efficient passer, but also a passer who could throw that thing with some heat. Now, tip number 5 to be an elite quarterback has to do with throwing with some touch. So we talk a lot about how can quarterbacks generate more velocity with their hips, transfer their weight, how can they throw harder, but there are 3 types of throws that quarterbacks have to be able to make. You got a 1 ball, which is a bullet, you have a 2 ball, which is a touch pass, and then a 3 ball is like a deep ball, and we're going to talk about that later on in this video. But for a touch pass, guys, I want you to focus on this. Grab something off of the top shelf. A lot of quarterbacks, when they try to throw with touch, they have a normal release point, almost like they're trying to throw a slant, and that ball doesn't have enough air. They end up overthrowing the receiver because he doesn't have enough time to go run this thing down. So guys, whenever we throw a touch pass, let's try to have my shoulders slightly arched, 45-degree angle, and when you snap your wrist, list, act like you're grabbing something off the top shelf out of the cookie jar. Now, tip number 6 to be an elite quarterback has to do with above the neck, the mental side of the game, football IQ, being able to read a defense. So a lot of quarterbacks will ask me, well, how do I read a defense? How do I know where to look? How do I determine what coverage it is? And you need a pre-snap process. So a pre-snap process is how you go about identifying a defense. You need a process because it needs to be quick. We don't have all day up here to make a decision, you guys. Usually if you're running a no-huddle offense, fast-paced offense, things are going quick, so this process has to be down to a T. So this is my pre-snap process. This is what I saw a lot of success with. This is maybe not the best one for you. Everybody's a little bit different, but what I would do is I would identify the safeties, then I go to the corners, then I go to the box. So the safeties was a process of elimination. How many are there? How wide are they? How are they playing? Then I look to the corners. Corners will always lie to us though, you guys. They'll show press and bail, but you can maybe get a little bit of info. Then I would look to the box and I would see, are they bringing pressure? How are the linebackers playing? Are they wider? Are they inside the box? And then I would make an educated guess on what the coverage would be. And obviously film study plays a big role into that. But if you have that pre-snap process, you'll be much better at making decisions at the line of scrimmage. Now, building off of that, you guys, if you would like access to 500 different videos on how quarterbacks can read defenses, recognize coverages, and the weaknesses of each coverage, check out that second link in the description below for our Football IQ service that we just offered on our website. What you'll get access to, like I said, 500 different videos, all categorized, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, and then we talk about how to identify it all from a quarterback perspective. So if you guys want to improve your football IQ, reading defenses ability, again, check out that second link in the description below. Let's get back to this video. Now, tip number 7 is going to be about leadership. Obviously, as a quarterback, you're the leader of the offense, you're the leader on the field. Everybody looks at you whether you like it or not. So how you can be a better leader? Be a thermostat leader, not a thermometer leader. Especially if you're a young quarterback going into a varsity situation, maybe is showing up to a new team. You have to lead by example and you have to set the tone for the entire team. So think about it. A thermostat in a room, you set the temperature. You want it to be 75, you turn it up to 75. A thermometer goes up to the temperature of the actual room. So the room's already hot, the thermometer is going to be hot. So you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be that guy that goes into an environment, how the team acts dictates how you act, because you might get a ton of guys on a team that aren't going to work that hard, that don't want to put in the effort. If you're just going to fall in line and be like everybody else, you're not cut out for the position. You need to show up in an environment and you need to raise the level of everybody around you. And you do that by leading by example, by showing up to workouts early, never missing a team practice, even if it's optional, actually putting in the time outside of practice to study film, because again, because of the position we're in, everybody's looking at us, whether you like it or not. That will raise the level of everybody around you, and that's how you can be a better leader. Now, tip number 8 to be an elite quarterback is to make sure that you take things one rep and one play at a time. This is something that I struggled with a lot as a young player. As a quarterback, characteristically, we're kind of a control freak, right? We want to control everything. We want to tell everybody what to want to do. We want to have our hands in everything. Totally understand that. I totally get that. But when you just can start focusing on what your job actually is as a quarterback and tune out everything else, which is actually really a distraction, you're going to perform much better. So like my personal experience, like when I first started playing on like varsity in high school, I remember I was always worried about, are the receivers going to run the right routes? Are they going to catch the ball? Is my offensive line going to block for me? Like, what am I? And I'm thinking about all the wrong things. I'm also thinking about, oh, there's a big crowd, like all this stuff, because it's a new environment, especially when you're playing on varsity for the first time. And a lot of you guys, younger guys watching this is like when you play maybe like for your middle school team or when you're first playing freshman high school football. You're always elevating the level and always gets to be a little bit more like pressure in a sense. But pressure isn't real, you guys. Pressure is something that you make up in your head. So if you can just focus on what your job actually is and tune out all the pressure, you're going to perform much better. So what's your job as a quarterback? Your job as a quarterback is to make the right read. So being able to identify a defender on the field that we're reading. Let's say it's like a smash concept. We have a hitch on the outside, corner from the slot. Your job is to read the corner, identify the coverage, obviously, read the corner, he comes down, throw the corner, he backs up, throw the hitch. And then your job is to deliver an accurate ball. Keep it simple. All the other stuff does not matter. Do your 1/11th. For a successful football play, all 11 guys on the field need to do their job. And you need to focus on what your job actually is, and the game will slow down. The moment won't be too big. The pressure won't get to you, and trust me, guys, you'll see a much bigger difference in your performance.